Hey, today we're going to use Docker and Docker Compose to install and utilize phishing-frenzy. The first thing you want to do is clone the GitHub repository for my Docker files, which is right here. So you want to go ahead and clone this repository. Once that's cloned, you'll cd into the phishing-frenzy directory, and you'll see a Docker Compose YAML file and an application directory. We can go over these high level. All this YAML file is doing is telling Docker Compose how to build these containers and how they communicate with each other. So the MySQL database, all it's doing is pulling down the image, and we're setting some environmental variables. The Redis DB, we're really not doing anything. We're just using the image. The app, we're actually going to go into the application directory and build it based off the Docker file instructions. It depends on the MySQL database and the Redis database to start up before it starts up. It links to the MySQL database and to the Redis database. We're going to actually expose the local host's port 80 to our port 80 on the Docker container. And we're going to finally export the 2 volumes for the Sidekick. Sidekick is just a base image which imports the volumes from the application. The reason we do it this way is because we don't want to start up a whole new, or build a whole new container just to launch Sidekick, or launch a new image. Anyways, if we cd into app, we'll see there's some files. There's apache2.conf. What this file contains is the load module for passenger. Really nothing to change in here. The next one is the database YAML file. If you change anything in here, you probably want to change it inside the Docker Compose YAML file, since they do call the environmental variables from there. The pfconf file is where your root phishing-frenzy application is going to be read from. You can change this phishing-frenzy.local. If you do that, you'll have to change that throughout the testing, or throughout the rest of this walkthrough tutorial. During this, we're going to actually be using phishing-frenzy.local. Let's quickly look at the Docker file. So we're just installing dependencies. We're cloning the GitHub file. We're going to install passenger, copy some of the local files over to the container, and then change the permissions and actually start Apache. So from this location, we're going to actually run, before we go, so you'll need, obviously you'll need Docker and Docker Compose before you start. The versions of Docker that we're running is Docker 1.11, and then the Docker Compose is 1.8. You'll need about that. The only thing for Docker Compose is that you'll need something that can read version 2 YAML files. These are the versions we're using right now. So once everything's installed, you'll need to do a Docker Compose build. And what this will do on your first run is we'll actually build everything for you. It'll download the necessary items and compile the necessary gems. The reason mine was so quick is I ran it already just for time's sake. Once that's all set up, you should be able to do a Docker Compose up and then MySQL database. So what this is doing is we're going to start the MySQL database. It's going to create all the tables for us. It's going to create the users, the passwords, so we can use them in our application. Alright, so it looks like MySQL is listening, so we can just Control-C out of it. We can tell it to start in the background. So now we have the MySQL database listening on 3306. Next, we're going to need to populate the MySQL database using phishing-frenzy's migrate files and to seed the database with phishing-frenzy seed file. So in order to do that, we're going to need to do Docker Compose, run. We're going to remove this because this will create a container, but we don't want that container, we just want to populate the MySQL database. The container is called application, and we're going to run rake db migrate. On your first run, it'll actually download the Redis database. All right, looks like everything worked correctly. Next, we're going to run db seed. Okay, don't worry about the warnings. They're just Ruby syntax things. So now that the database has been seeded, we can now do a docker compose up -d. D will tell it to put everything in the background. So Redis databases and MySQL databases are already up to date and running. It started the application in Sidekick. So if we do a docker compose ps, we'll see that all our data containers are running, and we're forwarding port 80 to our container. So let's start off with editing our hosts file. So like I said, we're going to use phishing-frenzy.local, and since phishing-frenzy uses virtual hosts instead of IP addresses, this is what I do. So you're going to tell it localhost points to phishing-frenzy.local. Next, we're going to need to do a few more things in the phishing-frenzy application. These are things we can't do during the build process, but we're going to run docker execute. The container, and then bash. We're going to need to run rake templates load. So what this is going to do is take the default templates that's with phishing-frenzy, that includes the Intel, password guessing, and the efax, and it'll load it all for us. And then we're going to run chown-r So we want to make sure that all correct permissions are set, and you can upload your any other templates that you need to that directory, so give it the correct permissions. I think one of the last things we need to do in this container is actually allow it to know where phishing-frenzy is located. So we're going to find the host machine IP. We're going to echo this IP to phishing. So we're going to echo that IP address to phishing-frenzy.local to etc host. So now it can ping okay. So now if you do a docker ps, same thing as docker compose, but we can see that everything's still running. We got our ports up and running. And now we should be able to go to phishing-frenzy.local. These are the default credentials, so it's admin and then fun time. Yep. They're in the Phishing Frenzy website if you need to know where they are. So we logged in successfully. Let's check our templates. Our templates are there. We go to system status. We see that Apache Redis and Sidekick are running. So if we click on Sidekick, we can see that we have one little agent guy running. I think that's pretty much it for right now. We'll actually need to go into global settings and change this to http://phishing-frenzy.local. What this will allow us to do is capture credentials. It's the reason we needed to change the etc host file on the Docker container. It needs to know where our application is located at and be able to talk to our application. Okay. So the campaign, we're going to make it active. The site, we can call it, oops, nope, bad, don't hit enter. All right, so we're gonna make it active. We're gonna call it dockertesting.com. And this is just setting it all up to make sure everything's working. Save our settings. So we go to campaigns, we see that it's active. And then we're going to call this dockertesting.com. So if we go to dockertesting.com and we put in a fake UID, we should see that our campaign is actually working. Everything was sent over correctly. Now we just need to send our emails. If you go to system status, you can also see that our Docker testing is enabled in the config file, and here's the alias. So let's go ahead and add an email. So our target is going to be this victim. Okay, so that's all set up, so let's save that. We're just going to go ahead and launch this campaign. It looks like everything went through correctly. We got an email from phishing-frenzy called testing. Here's just the basic email. We get the user to click on the link. We get our custom UID working. Looks like everything's working. If they type in their password, we see that the default one's working still. We get redirected to index 2. Our UID is still there. Our password's not strong enough, so it gets the user to keep guessing. So let's go ahead and check our reports. Looks like our click went through successfully. And we've seen some passwords, so if we go ahead and click on that UID, we can see that we went through and the password that was sent is also here. So that's pretty much it for Phishing Frenzy with Docker. If you're all done with your engagement or you're all done using Phishing Frenzy at the time, you can do docker compose stop, and this will actually stop every container in the correct order. This will not destroy any data or ruin anything. This will just stop the containers from listening. So if we go to here again, there's nothing running. If we do docker ps, nothing's running. If you do a docker ps-a, you can see that they were exited. If you do a docker compose ps, same thing, that they've been exited. But if you go ahead and just say start them back up, it'll start them up in the correct order, and you'll be able to visit the application again. If you want to tear it down, if you're done with the engagement, you're done with harvesting all your credentials, and you have all the data out, you can actually just do a docker compose and down, and this should actually stop all the containers and tear down all the networking and actually remove the containers from your host. And that is it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching.